Wait a minute, this is supposed to be a celebration of life. Oh well, put the Kleenex away. Here we go. Start over. Mearl Noftz was born in this home in Barrington, Illinois, March 25th, 1925. Here's his parents, Emil and Julia Noftz, grandparents, Wesolowskis. They also lived in Barrington. Here's Dad with one of his cousins, Lucy, and a friend. And here he's in his first mode of transportation. Second mode of transportation. Here he is with his dad, Emil, again. No, he did not cut down this cherry tree. I think I see where he got his interest in cars. This was his first real car. This is a studio photo as he was 2 years old. This was his school, his elementary school in Huff Street in Barrington, Illinois. Pick him out here. He looks a lot like me when I was this age in first grade. Here he comes, second grade. Third grade. Fourth grade. This is his sixth grade photo. This brings up when he was this age. One day, Grandma was supposed to bring the car up for him to wash, and she wasn't fast enough, so he went and got it and drove it to the house. He was in sixth grade. And here's a garage where, as a kid, he and Floyd jumped in the car. The car sat over a pit and started wiggling the wheels, and one of the wheels fell down into the pit. They ran, but apparently they didn't get in trouble. They got the car back. Also, when this house was being built, it was brought here on a train and then horse and buggies. There was a scaffold around it, and he and Floyd were up on it running. All of a sudden, Floyd disappeared and fell to the ground. He wasn't breathing. He ran and got Dad, but Dad brought him back to life. And here's Dad as the prince in his sophomore play. Here's another one, It Never Rains. This was a junior play that he was also a lead in. And then as a senior, he was a lead in this play. This was just a senior class play. And he graduated from Barrington High School in 1934. This is Dad's buddy, Don Bennett. They both went to high school together, and they were both encouraged to go to college. They didn't go to college right off. They worked a year because this was during the Depression to get some money. And this is Dad's first car. It didn't have a trunk or anything. If you look on the back of here, his dad built a platform back there to put all the trunks, and away they went. And here they are at Iowa State University. And here's Dad's first desk. He worked in a cooperative place where he had to clean and scrub, but it was cheap. So here he is with his mom and brother Ken on graduation day. Of course, his mom and dad very proud of their first college graduate. And here's his resume printed by the university showing he got a Bachelor of Science in Automotive and Industrial Engineering.
And why did you come to Detroit?
So I was offered a job at Chrysler.
Okay.
So I joined the incoming class of engineering students who worked toward a master's degree at Chrysler while we were working. So that went on for...
So was that right out of college you came?
Right out of college.
Here he is in his graduating class. This is a plaque at the museum, the Daimler Chrysler Museum, when Dad's in the first graduating class from the academy there. And he was also known for the Hemi engine. Here's one in the car. He's going to show you his wartime things and his airplane pilots, but nah, he didn't do that. He worked for Chrysler. Here's an engine that he helped design. They put two 8-cylinder engines together and put it in this plane. And here's one of the engines they found in the Philippines. They only built 4. This is at the museum in Auburn Hills. And he also had a lot to do with the turbine car. He actually brought one home and let me drive it, and I went and picked up my buddy, and we went to Big Boy and stopped, and the kids started to mob the car, so we jumped in, started it up again before they messed anything up. We took off. Never told that. He also worked on the diesel engine project with Cummins Diesels, and they asked him not to retire for a couple of years while he did this, and he did do it, and they eventually did put it in their diesel trucks. Well, they did date.
Well, we met in the YMCA down central Detroit as a result of a young people's group at Central Methodist who were going out to visit others who hadn't shown up.
Okay.
And so May elected to ride in my car because we were going out by 2 by 2.
Because I wanted to ride in his car.
Because you thought he was cute.
Yeah.
Of course.
I think this is the first time Dad took Mom to meet his parents in Barrington. And Lydia and Earl were dating at the same time. And they had a lot of nice trips. I think this was at Belle Isle. Then, of course, eventually came along the wedding. Here's the invitation. And one of the pictures from the studio. At that time, they didn't take pictures in the church. Here's their brother Sam, sister Bee, brother Ken, sister Lydia, of course May, Mearl, Ruby Fry, and his brother Rusty. Here's the article out of the paper.
These are movies of our wedding, which was October 4th, 1941. They are 8mm film that were taken by Bob Burnett. Starts the fun. There's the groom. That's Lydia, isn't it? And my brother Ken Noftz. And who's that?
Ruby, that's Ruby. Used to be Ruby Fry, now Ruby Burnett.
This is actually their second home on Colton in Detroit, where they had a 4-family flat where they met a lot of their friends that they still have today. Dad started making his own Christmas cards. He was quite a photographer. Here's some of the things he did. He'd photograph the little sleigh and then photograph us separately and cut them out and put them back in. He did the same thing on this one where he photographed a small miniature car, had us behind card tables, then pasted us back in. This one was funny because some friend called to say she'd never seen us at this house. She was going to want to come over and visit us. Some more friends get together at the Yales. And then they moved to 340 East Maplehurst, just down the street from Grandma Steele. And here's a swing that Dad built for Janet and I. He's always making stuff. Then we moved to Birmingham in 1959, and everybody says, why are you going to move way out there in the boonies? Well, it was a good move. We loved it.
And you had this fabulous garden. I remember your whole backyard almost was garden on Norfolk.
We had a big garden there surrounded by red raspberries, which we enjoyed very much, and so did all the relatives.
We used to have
raspberry sundaes.
Oh, I remember that. And raspberry
pies.
pies.
Yeah,
Love those red.
They had lots together in their basement that Dad finished. Those are the cameras in the middle. And here's a typical Christmas. This is Amy Hart, Janet's daughter. And of course, Dad got to rile them all up. That was part of Christmas. And I'm helping her with her xylophone, which I'm sure they lost real quick. And of course, Dad gets another shirt. Then we got smart. We actually started figuring out what he wanted for presents.
Does it kill him?
No.
No.
Air.
Oh, it's air. No, it's a pellet gun. It says.
Is it pellets?
Mm-hmm. There are the instructions as to how it works.
Connie, I took a picture.
Here's what the living room looked like. Presents everywhere.
Waiting.
It's like mine.
Janet's family usually would spend the night, and we'd get there at the crack of dawn, and there we go. Here's Grandma Steele's 99th Christmas. She couldn't hear, couldn't see very well, but she hung in there. She lived with Mom and Dad for almost 50 years. She only moved in until she could find another house and never moved out. Family together. And then they put in a pool. Here we are at the pool in the backyard. A lot of fun times in the summer. Here I am with my daughter and cousins. There's Dad and I sitting in the shade. Dad always sat in the shade. He had a skin condition where he didn't have much pigment on his arms and face, so he always wore shirts. Here's a wedding in Barrington that we went to with the Noftz family. And here's everybody back at the house in the best place in the kitchen. And Grandma's 99th, actually 100th birthday. There was their articles in the paper. And all three of us played instruments. I played the clarinet, Janet the flute, and Connie took up the flute, and I actually took up the oboe also. And I just recently bought one and I'm playing in the community band again. Here's Connie's wedding where she married Bob McKinnon and all the family around. Also, Janet got married. I got married. But we had some wonderful times with the Thorntons out at the lake. They lived on Upper Straits Lake, right on the water. They had docks, rafts, motorboats, sailboats. Bob and I skied all the time. It was great times. Then right after Christmas, we'd all go out there to the Thorntons' house, and there's Dad and Uncle Sam and Lydia and Bob, and then Bob Steele and Joan and Aunt Lou and Aunt Bee and Mom. And the other side of the living room was just as full. Here's Uncle Earl. Here's Bill Kropp on the left, Janet in the middle, and Sharon doesn't look happy in the back, and I'm on the right. But summer was there. We were always out there for some kind of party. We always had great food and great things. But then we had these wonderful vacations in Wisconsin. We went for 2 weeks every year, usually, and we'd always stop in Barrington, and here's Dad's family in Barrington. That's me and Pete in the front. But one of the reasons they really went, they had an 18-hole golf course. The golf course surrounded Yerkes Observatory, which was rather unusual, kind of a neat tour. There's some of the kids that were there from the group. Dick Yale ran this, and there was a lot of people from Central Methodist Church. Here's Dad with Connie on the porch, and Don Kammer, Jack McCullough, Maryland. We really did have tents. They were 4-bedroom tents. Dick and Sue Yale. Here's Shy Mom. And a lot of mornings the men would get up early and go eat with the employees so they could start the first 9 holes early. Here's Connie at the beginning of the tents. There's Craig McCullough. And here's Don Kammer again. Mom cheering him on, not. And here's the Kropps. They're coming out of church on Sunday and coming up to the dining hall. And here's Don and Cindy rowing. We had free rowboats, and it was a lot of fun to go out in the water. Gradually they did away with tents, and we lived in these terraces, which were individual bedrooms with community bathrooms. They're much nicer than the tents, but here's what Janet thought of the tent. Something was wrong with her legs. And here we are on the front of the porch with the Kropps. We shared the tent with them quite often. One of the best parts is they had activities for the kids in the morning, so the parents could go golfing. If it was raining, they'd go antiquing. We had a lot of skits and things we did. There was also badminton. We had nonstop competitions. And there was a nice place to get a little bite to eat up at the golf course. Well, we had goofy golf. You had to tee off together like this. One of them you had to tee out of a swimming pool, which was a real trick. And then one of the holes, you could get there the normal way, but you had to blow the ball into the hole. And there was quiet times, but we had wonderful gifts. Mom has on a bikini with a false leg, and Don Kammer has one of their night shirts on. We're always giving goofy gifts. This is Linda Middleton and I under the lifeguard stand. And here's the Kropps up front on Sunday waiting for dinner. And here's the men joining the women. The men have already done 9 holes, and the women are going to do their first 9. Here's a group on the steps. Another group a little later. We had up to about 60 people at some times. And a lot of times the kids spent a lot of time on the beach. It was great. Here's Dad and Mitch coming down to the beach. And away they go. That water was cold. It was a spring-fed lake. And they had a full sailing pier and everything. And you can see all the sailboats in the background. And here Mitch won another gift. These were later years when not many of the kids went, but the kids were all working, so the parents went back. And they had a really neat old steamboats that had been converted that took tours around the lake. And of course you had to pack and unpack, but there was time at the beach. This is Connie and Craig and Ethel McCullough and Mom. And everything was uphill or downhill. It was quite an exercise. This is what it looked like in '87 when we went back with Katie, with our reunion with the group. This is last summer. Bob and I and our wives went back for an employee reunion. A lot of us kids worked there for the summer. Just another nice view last summer of all the sailboats. There's quite a few sailing regattas on the lake. But Dad was also a religious education teacher at the church in Detroit, and he'd go on all the trips with the youth group, and here they were going to Chicago or New York. And we went on to Union College. Here he is there, where we did a lot of religious things and character research projects, but we also built a cabin on the woods properties for the youth group to use. And Dad came, and we had a lot of fun. We just great time. We'd go back in the winter and go sledding and tobogganing and all that stuff. Dad also usually built us an ice rink in the backyard, which nobody else had. But of course, when Connie's band needed uniforms, Mom and Dad got involved. They raised a lot of money and got them all new uniforms. He also built these box hockey games and other games which they sold for the Methodist Church to raise money. And Connie graduated from college, and so did Janet, and so did I. We had a lot of good role models, so we all moved on. Back up north at the Mackinac Bridge, they're doing a walk, but they did go on a lot of trips. And eventually Dad realized that he liked clocks, so he started buying them, and he learned how to fix them. He could fix almost any clock, and he had a few. To this day, we have clocks on the wall that Dad made and fixed. And here's Connie on a trip where Dad started to collect trains. And as you can see, you're never too young to enjoy a train with Dad. And at Christmas, we realized great gifts to give Dad instead of shirts. Here's a place where he actually bought out a lot of a watchmaker's shop. And he bought a lot of chairs. He learned how to cane. All the chairs in the apartment are caned by him. And back at the house in Birmingham, another family get-together. And of course, Mom and Janet with the food. We always had great food. Then they bought a cottage 8 miles above Gaylord. You couldn't even walk from the road to the lake. It was so stuffed with trees and bramble and stuff, so they started clearing out. They did this a whole year in advance. The next summer, he had a company come in which assembled and put up the cottage. It was pre-built, most of it in sections. And of course, here's Lydia and Connie putting on the stain before it was even done. Uncle Earl and I and Dad did a lot of the insulation and drywall and electrical and all that kind of stuff. To have a name, it was Noftz Niche. And here's some of us on the deck. It's all done. And we did go up in the winter. It was kind of fun. We'd go sledding and stuff and lots of hikes and cross-country skiing. But of course, you had to put the docks in the spring, and it was usually pretty cold. And we had sailboats. Dad and I actually had a match pair of these kayaks. He could always outsail me. Dad liked this motorcycle. Well, here's he and Jack Kropp on the sailboat. And occasionally Mom, Dad could get away with a little roll around the lake. And of course, we had a hoist, put my boat in. And of course, the roof was defective, so at 80, he's up there helping me put a roof on it. And here's sort of a fall crowd at the cottage with the McKees and the Middletons. And Dad had a bigger sailboat, which he liked a lot. Here he is fixing the cabinet while Mom's still cooking on it. And here he's with Bob McKinnon. They had all kinds of old outboards they worked on. Occasionally we'd make some oars. And the deck gave out after about 30 years, so we built a new deck on top of it. Oh, he's ready again. Mom's still making jam. And Dad's working on the hot water heater. They always came and went. Here he is up in his late 80s, up in the tree, doing stuff he shouldn't. Another outboard that he repaired. But Dad really liked the boat. I think it was a mechanical thing he enjoyed. Here's Connie. She used to ski a lot, so she's pretty good. And here's my cousin Bob. He was a real good skier. He hadn't skied in years and came up, so we dragged him. We found out as we got older we could only do this for about 30 seconds. Here's Pat's family. They came up every summer for about 3 days, only about 35 of them. We found we needed a little easier things for the kids. And we got knee boards and everybody liked that, and we could pull one real easy. And then we found out we could pull two pretty easy, and then we got to where we were pulling 3. But knee boards are fun. They're not so hard on your back. You can do it a couple of times a day and still walk, but they're neat over the waves. Then I started showing them how you could spin around. We started having competitions, and we'd go down the lake and do 40, 50 spins on the knee board before we'd fall. Of course, Dad liked taking them out just for rides or skiing or whatever. And here's Connie and Bob with Mom and Dad and some quiet time in the cottage. Here's the guys showing how brave they are and strong. They're going to go in the cold water. And Dad's fixing the flower boxes, the perpetual thing. And here's some of Janet's family, her daughters and crops, and another fun get-together. A lot of times when it was cold or damp, we'd get out a puzzle. And Mom and Dad had a lot of special times out on the deck with a beautiful view on the lake and the beautiful sunsets. And occasionally they'd leave and go over to Bayview and Petoskey and visit the Benishes. But there was an eagle nest across the lake. This was the last time Dad was up. And here's Ken and Gloria and Janet and her husband. They came to visit from Chicago, and there's another occasion with Aunt Lou out on the back porch.
Happy birthday, have a happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, have a happy birthday. Today, there is only one thing that you must do.
And here's Bob McKinnon cooking. Actually, Bob and I did all the cooking on the barbecue. After a while, Dad hated barbecuing. And here's most of the McKinnons at the condo, or actually Henry Ford Village. And here out on the deck at the cottage, just general summer fun. And back at the Henry Ford Village, another bash at their thing with the crops, Bill and Jack and Bee. And you know, Mom and Dad were wonderful gardeners, and I picked that up. I ended up with a degree in botany. And we said a prayer at every meal. It was always nice. And surprisingly, Dad actually liked to dance. He danced with Mom quite often at the dances and the parties. And here we are back in Birmingham with just the whole family out in front. And then we moved into their celebrations. We did a 25th wedding anniversary out at the Thorntons. Here we are in their paneled basement. It was all cooked nicely, and here's the two mothers, Lydia and Julia. And here's most people that were in the wedding party are at the wedding. And us kids with them. And Janet's husband, Dale. And then we had a 50th wedding celebration. And here's a bunch of their stuff laid out to look at, and a wonderful buffet. This one was at the church in Birmingham. For the 50th, we gave them a trip to Hawaii, and the crops went with them. And here's some of the people at the church. Here we are. This was back at the condo for, I think it was one of the celebrations. I don't remember which. Here's the Yales and the Middletons. More food. And here's Joan and Cheryl and Sue and David Steele. And of course, at their 65th, we also had a 90-year-old birthday party for Dad. And here's all of the Steele family at the reception. And Mom's cutting the second cake. And here's Ted Olson, Jack, and Bob Burnett, and myself at the 50th. Here's John and Christina Mann, Mom and Dad, Amy and Bill Sharpie, Janet's daughters and husbands. And here we are in Barrington at a wedding with Rusty and Ken, his brothers. Here's Dad at his 65th at Henry Ford, and he really didn't want to speak. I said, well, I'll speak for you. I don't remember everything, but I'll make it up. So he decided he'd do it.
All of a sudden I'm arriving at Iowa State again. This is a 1935 Plymouth, and we couldn't hold all the people that were going across our luggage, so we built that luggage rack for the back of it, and there we go.
This is cousin Eleanor after Clay had died, and we're visiting in Barrington. And here's Pete and Alex and his brother Floyd the last time they visited Henry Ford Village. But Dad really got into a lot of genealogy. A lot of it was handwritten stuff that he would type up. And here's his Wesolowski grandparents that he started getting pictures. This was an old mill that Wesolowski worked at. And this is funny. This is the family some of them went back out to Montana to capture horses to sell in Chicago. Later we learned out that actually they went and stole some of the horses and did some jail time. Here's a family photo, and here's a big family photo, which Dad immediately took, and if you see here, he circled everybody and gave them numbers and named everybody so we'd know later. He also bought a book with all the names of Noftz, or sound-alike names of Noftz, and he found this cousin Philip in Wisconsin and his wife Bertha, and they came and visited us at Lake Geneva. He didn't know any Noftz lived in the United States. He'd never met any of them, so kind of an interesting thing. And we're doing rubbings on the cemetery in Barrington, fine things. Dad actually learned German, and he and Mom went over to Poland. It was near Gdansk, Oberammergau, and here's some of the Wesolowski family, and they're visiting the cemetery where they actually were able to see the Wesolowski burial sites. And this was their apartment. They really don't have any money in Poland. And here's all of their measurements so that they can send stuff back because they had nothing. They basically emptied their suitcases and left them everything they had, and then sent them clothes and money. And here they are in their small apartment. Fortunately, their one son spoke English quite well, but none of the rest did. And of course, they'd walk the bridge in Mackinac. But they went on a lot of trips. This was, I think, part of the Canadian Rockies. And they were next to a glacier way up high. Here's the group, and if you look closely, you can see B and Jack are in it also. But they also went down to Florida. Uncle Earl and Aunt Lydia had a trailer down there, had a lot of great times. And this is one of the ships they went on between parts of the trip. And this is in California with the crops. They moved out there. And Dad really loved this. This was his autobiography, 98 pages. I had it bound by a little old guy in Warren. He was tickled pink. Turned out really nice. And here's a sample page. Here's some of the family sitting on the porch drinking beer out of a pitcher. And here's one of the family members who actually had a little moving company, and this was his truck. This is their last Thanksgiving we had with Dad. He was actually interred at the church. He was cremated, and we had a small ceremony, just the family only, and his ashes were added into the courtyard there. They have a lovely big plaque on the side, and after a week or two, they actually put up his name and birth and death date. Well, this has been a fast run. Basically, I'm 75% of my dad. His talents in photography, he taught me very early, and that very quickly went into video and gave me the skills to do something like this. His gardening abilities, I really like. That's where I got my major in botany and became a teacher with greenhouses and stuff. I know this is kind of fast, so in the Edison room, please make sure to get a copy of this video, which you can play on DVD players or a computer. And I also have complete copies of his autobiography, which you can play on any computer and read the whole thing. It's really fascinating. Where's Dad now? Well, I'm sure he had golfer's breakfast and played 9 before lunch, and you know the rest. Thanks, Dad.